When exploring the simulated universe, you inevitably will come into contact with many different curios. And even though these objects are all from the simulated universe, they still hold a lot of stories we can discover. Some of the curios are kind of simplistic, but others have an entire storyline connected to them. There are some curios I won't talk about in full detail, because their stories are linked to a story that is too big for this video. But even without those stories, there is still plenty to talk about. For example, the crazy experiments of the Doctors of Chaos. The Doctors are believers of X, 9 or IX the nihility. When someone truly believes in the statement, existence is nothingness, they will be subjected to the nihility. When that happens, there are two different outcomes. Either they become a self-annihilator or a Doctor of Chaos. The Doctors of Chaos want to prove to the Aeon that existence does have meaning, and even though they know it cannot be done, they still seem to enjoy doing it. To complete their grand plan, they want to make the Aeon see reason behind life. So, to try and cure the self-annihilators, they created the sealing waxes. It is said that when you stamp with the seal, you draw the gaze of an Aeon, thereby proving that the Aeons care about the actions of mortals. Sadly, there are no successful examples of this, but they still managed to make some self-annihilators regain their faith in the universe. So, mission success? Luckily, the Doctors have created more relics to assist in their quest, such as the tonic of efficacious chaos. The Doctors believe that this tonic helps against feelings of loneliness. However, it seems to have the unfortunate side effect of increasing aggression against the Doctors themselves. And it can also cause self-annihilators to see the shadow of nihility, thus creating certain accidents. Lastly, the Doctors have one final tool called the Chaos Tremides. These things are the Doctors' most commonly used curios, and they use them to restore confidence in self-annihilators suffering from despair. Moving on from the Doctors, there is another faction that makes frequent use of some curios, the Genius Society. The man-made meteorite is a construct created by Genius number 9, Klein, as a gift for Genius number 7, Bodan. The eye on the surface is a replica of the Eye of Erudition, which is most likely the same object as the Omniscia in Fu Xuan's forehead. The Doctor's robe once belonged to Genius Society number 64, Dr. Primitive. This robe was sold on Device IX's dark web by an anonymous seller. Sadly, other than his research on the finality and his connection to Device IX, and his death at the hands of Genius number 4, Polka Kakamont, we don't know much about Dr. Primitive at all yet. Genius Society number 55, Yu Qingtu, is most definitely an eccentric person. She apparently likes to create new types of cocktails, many of which are just literal poison. For example, the Thalen Toxiflame. This drink is one of the 774 most toxic cocktails ever created. And even though it was once popular among locals, nobody has lived to describe the taste. Not all of her drinks are toxic though, for example the Pinkest Collision, which she created as a gift for her fellow genius and friend Ruan Mei. A mixologist once tried to recreate it and was trying to prove the drink was made with insect spores and other insect parts, since it seems to contain certain hallucinogenic properties. The Society ticket was an invention from number 56, Elias Salas. This ticket teleports the genius it is sent to a dimension decked with festivities, to make them have a good time and talk with each other about their lives and dreams. Sadly, no geniuses have ever used the ticket at the same time, rendering this whole operation completely useless. The curios we see in the space station are not all of the curios Herta has ever collected. For example, the Cavity system is a model of a system in a faraway galaxy that once piqued her interest, and the Dimension Reduction dice, which only occupies 2 dimensions instead of 3, but doesn't seem to have a purpose. By far the most interesting and also dangerous curio in her collection is the Parchment That Always Eats. As an extremely powerful weapon of the history fictionologists, it feeds on the memories and history of humanity. Herta has been creating false memories for this curio to devour, but eventually one day, the parchment will notice that something is wrong, and there is no telling what consequences that will have. Of course, the Genius Society has many fans and haters alike, both of which are spreading rumors like wildfire. And as seen on the typical Genius Society gossip, people are mostly curious about Genius Society number 84, Stephen Lloyd. The Genius Society is not the only faction with a large influence across the galaxy. Just because of its size and influence, the IPC made an enormous impact on the universe. One of the reasons their influence is still growing so fast is the former nameless Osvaldo Schneider, who also invented the Cosmic Big Lotto, which has led to a lot of worlds and people joining the IPC just for a chance of winning. After which, the Business Consolidation Department pulled the same trick again with the Interastral Big Lotto, earning a massive profit in one fell swoop. The IPC once created a special investment product called the Angel-type IOU dispenser that allows its owners to invest from any location. You just have to insert a few coins, and the device will eventually dispense high returns at the end of the debt cycle. But the IPC is not just about making money. They also provide actual smart and useful solutions for problems certain planets have to deal with. For example, they created an infinitely replicating silver coin, called the Coin of Discord, to make antennas out of silver for better intergalactic communication. This also made it possible for them to provide entertainment, like TV shows such as Tousled Detective and commercials for products such as the Casket of Inaccuracy. If you decide to climb the corporate ladder and reach the rank of P40, you are even allowed to buy faith bonds to invest in the IPC, gaining some interest and strengthening the great cause of preservation at the same time. So maybe the IPC is not that bad after all. That is, of course, when you ignore the lengths they will go to force unwilling planets to join them, even if it means using their gold to destroy that planet's entire economic system. Contrary to the Genius Society and the IPC, the Intelligentsia Guild tries to advance and enrich the universe for mostly selfless reasons. They created multiple different objects for everyday convenience and research purposes, like the Omniscient Capsule. This handy device holds an impossibly large space, and its lightweight makes it even better. Originally, they wanted to connect the bag to independent demiplanes so you could actually store an infinite amount of items, but they are still trying to implement that feature. Some researchers go as far as to sacrifice themselves for more data. The insect web was discovered by the Intelligentsia Guild and holds parasitic larvae. The archaeologist responsible for delivering this web had to cut out the larvae from under his skin to provide research samples. Of course, this sacrifice was honored by the academics, and they discovered that these larvae are most likely descendants of Tasironte propagation. The smartest minds of the guild are granted a special ornament called the Laurel Crown of Planar Shifts. The leaves are made from decayed masons, but are most likely the same as the leaves from the interdimensional trees on the planet Arevanta. These leaves have evolved to make warp jumps to the ground, because the fluctuating gravity on the planet doesn't allow the leaves to fall naturally. These were all of the curios with a connection to the larger factions in the universe. Now let's go over the curios that have a less strong connection or are just random objects found in history. Starting with the triangular drumroll device. Before the storm disaster, when Aina the Order was still around, some civilizations would be lucky enough to hear the pure hymns produced by Aina themselves. These stones were created by Aina to congratulate them if they were able to advance their civilization quickly. Probably because a certain amount of order is necessary to make such leaps in progress. The followers of Aina, the Beyond the Sky Choir, revert the way these special tones had an infinite amount of tones with infinite combinations and varieties. So they created the triangular drumroll device to try and replicate that infinite spectrum. The choir went silent after Aina was absorbed by Jipe, as they lost their faith. Only a few records are remaining now, and if you would play a record from Beyond the Sky on a phonograph of order, you would hear songs that contain the beauty of order. Sadly, the last phonograph was destroyed in the Emperor's War. The Obliteration Wick Trimmer and the Void Wick Trimmer are both extremely dangerous objects. The Obliteration Wick Trimmer can make its victims explode into particles if touched. And although the Void Wick Trimmer has no physical effect, it cuts away at passion and motivation. One trims the body and one trims the soul. Just like a memory bubble, the space-time prison holds the memories of the universe. The difference being that this curio affects both your body and mind if you come into contact with it, altering yourself. The ambergris cheese was created by a helper robot to satisfy its master's never-ending appetite. To create this cheese, they used ambergris of abundance. It turns out that if you use an ingredient blessed by the abundance to make something that was already supposed to multiply, things get out of hand fast. Until this day, the entire planet is still covered in cheese. And to prevent warp jumping into said planet, a Nameless created the warping compound eye, capable of warping light forward and back to the user to see obstacles in the path of the jump. The mourning actors are often the victims of the masked fools. They even had their masks stolen by them, so they took pity on the Knights of Beauty, who often suffer the same fate. So they are holding on to a tooth from one of the knights who was searching for aesthetic perfection, as a gesture of goodwill, keeping it in pristine condition. The robes of the Knights of Beauty still serve as a reminder of Idrilla's glory days, even though we don't really know whose robe this actually was. The Medal of the Glory Blood era is a relic from back when the IPC had just established interstellar trade. After most of the planets became more prosperous, some of them ascended to become bustling interstellar hubs and metropolises. This went on for nearly 500 Ember eras, and was subsequently named the Glory Blood era. This era slowly ended, and even the Great Interstellar Energy War did not erase this achievement. For some reason, Nous the Erudition terminated their calculations regarding the mysteries of the universe during this war, so there are probably some mysteries left there. Punk Lord Mentality holds the records of a great Punk Lordian hacker, who mastered the art of Aether editing. Eventually, he would use his skills for good, as he would join the Galaxy Rangers, where in the end, he finished the last level of the great game called Life. The beacon coloring paste was an invention from a Nameless who was stranded on a barren planet. The color of the paste allowed the Galactic Rescue Team to find them easily, so now it's used in emergency situations. The entropic dye is said to either bring fortune or extreme misfortune, but people like to play with them nonetheless. Its counterpart, the shining trapezohedron, is said to seal an evil god inside, who will be released when the dye is exposed to darkness. But since the dye itself is shining, this has created the famous shining trapezohedron dye paradox. You cannot prove something that cannot be proven. Fruit of the alien tree is most likely from the same species as the fruit of the Xianzhou natives. And just like the Xianzhou, the ancient leviathans of old were also tempted by food, like the shattered star bait. Although, this bait has seemingly lost all effectiveness, as the bait hasn't attracted any leviathans anymore. The black hole trap is thought to be a place shrouded by the shadows of nihility, and some people think this was a trap set intentionally. But there seems to flow an unknown kind of energy through those places, so maybe there's actually something behind the nihility. Although being swallowed by a nihility can't be the worst fate. Family ties seems to be a transportation device that warped a certain user to the gathering of the family. He witnessed the worshippers of Jipe with their eyes wide open and their mouths twisted into an eerie smile. When he questioned what was happening, they turned to him and welcomed him with the words "Welcome" coming from every face simultaneously. The guest copied the family's faces to try and survive this ordeal and smiled back. Eventually he managed to escape the scene. Maybe he was a user of the fortune glue, which doesn't seem to do anything if you live an ordinary life, proving that simply having an ordinary life is lucky enough in this universe. And that were all of the curios I can talk about for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one. Bye!